Hi folks, I'm Chris Marshall with Woodworker's Journal magazine. For about the past 10 years, I've used this 8-inch joiner that has a helical cutter head on it with 40 carbide inserts, and I love it. If you haven't seen a helical head before, I'm going to unplug the machine and show you what that cutter head looks like. These little square chips of carbide stay sharp for an incredibly long time, and when they eventually dull or get nicked, they have 4 sharp edges. So all you have to do is loosen the screws that hold them in place, pivot them to the next sharp edge, and tighten the screws down again. It's really a simple process. Now you won't have to maintain these inserts very often. In fact, most of the ones on this cutter head are the originals. But even carbide eventually gets dull. And you'll know that when the surfaces of the wood aren't as smooth as they used to be, or when it seems like it takes more effort to push boards through when you're making joining passes. And every now and then, a little bit of grit on the wood will nick the inserts, and you can see and feel that by little tiny tracks left on the wood. Either way, you'll know it's time to do some maintenance. So in this short video, I want to offer you a few tips to keep in mind when that time comes. First, it's important to keep track of how many sharp edges you have left, because you won't necessarily rotate all of the inserts at the same time. And I'll talk more about that a little later. But the manufacturers do make it pretty easy to keep track, and here's how. Here's a plywood model of what these inserts look like up close. Now, depending on the manufacturer, there will either be a hash mark or possibly some initials etched into one of the corners of each of the inserts. On my joiner, I've got a hash mark that looks like this. Now, as you can see here, I removed one of the inserts, and it fits into this little recessed pocket on the cutter head, and it only fits into that pocket one way. That way, only one sharp edge is presented to the wood at a time. The other 3 edges are facing away. Now, if you're working with a new joiner, or you've just never rotated the inserts before, all of these identifiers will be facing one direction on the cutter head, and there's really only 4 positions: 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and 11 o'clock. Now, regardless of which hourly position the inserts are in, get a recipe card that you can keep with your spare inserts and your other joiner tools, and draw a picture on the card that represents the orientation of the inserts at the first sharp edge. Also make a note to yourself how to face the joiner so that you can accurately assess the position of each of the inserts. And as you can see here on my recipe card, my first sharp edge was at the 1 o'clock position. So I know that any inserts that are now at the 4 o'clock position are on their second sharp edge, at the 7 o'clock position are on their third sharp edge, and so on. And I assess that sitting in front of the joiner, which is actually to the side of the machine. I always rotate the inserts clockwise to keep from getting confused. I found that this recipe card has been a really helpful form of notation for me. And over the years, I've had to rotate some inserts to fix nicks. Other inserts, particularly those closest to the fence, have simply gotten dull faster than the rest because they're responsible for both edge joining and face joining. And still others have gotten cracked and broken, and I've had to replace those with new. So I've got a hodgepodge of different positions for my inserts on the cutter head. But as long as I keep my recipe card for reference, no problem. I know the status of every insert on the cutter head at a glance. And here's another tip. When it comes time to rotate your inserts for the first time, be sure to use a quality Torx bit. And I learned that one the hard way. Back in 2005, when I bought my joiner, it came with this T-wrench plus some really soft Torx bits. And when I tried to loosen the screws for the first time, I literally twisted these bits out of shape. And after I ruined a couple of those, plus another package of cheap ones that I bought from a home center, I finally got smart. I bought some Torx bits that were made for impact tools, and the problem was solved. These hardened bits will loosen these machine screws without any trouble at all. So maybe your joiner will come with some better quality Torx bits than mine did, but if it doesn't, and if you have trouble loosening the screws, try some hardened Torx bits instead. They'll work a whole lot better. And once you've got an insert removed in preparation for rotating it, here's another tip. Take a close look at it with a magnifying glass. Carbide is incredibly hard, and that's what allows it to hold an edge for such a long time. But the trade-off for hardness is that it's also brittle. Now what you're looking for here is a hairline crack that radiates out from the screw hole to the edge of the cutter. They can be hard to see, but the surface of these inserts are actually fairly polished, and that'll help a crack show up better. And if the insert is cracked, don't reuse it. It's just going to crack the rest of the way across, probably when you tighten it back down. So replace it with a new one. And when you're rotating inserts, cleaning should be part of the process too. So before you screw it back down to the cutter head, flip it over and take a look on the back side of the insert for any old sawdust and pitch deposits. You can see it on the back of this insert as the tan material on the top two corners. Now I found that that's usually dry and it's pretty easy to scrub off with an old toothbrush. You don't need any special cleaners. And one last thing, be sure to clean the pocket on the cutter head too. It only takes a little bit of grit under an insert to make it sit unevenly. If you tighten it down, it can crack. So brush the pockets to loosen any debris, then blow them clean with compressed air. And with the pocket clean, you're ready to screw the insert back down. As far as tightening goes, just snug it up. It'll stay put. Insert cutter heads on joiners are easy to take care of. I hope these simple tips will help you keep your joiner cutting like the day it was new. Thanks for watching.